Hello, welcome to this episode of Love is a Battlefield, the podcast, the DV podcast. My name is Tilly Moore and this is episode 22, two little ducks, 22. This episode is actually the most non-DV episode of them all, but I kind of got to talking in the last episode and touched on what this is. And now here we are. So the episode, I believe I'm going to call it, like I keep changing my mind, like this happens. We're people, we do these things and it's okay. It was going to be called My Parents Are Nudists, but then that kind of makes out that I wasn't part of that. I was raised by nudists is what I'm going to call it because I saw a lot of dick. I need that acknowledged. What that meant. So this episode is all about just me sharing my life and sharing things. There's a lot I share, a lot. And this, this could be kind of like boundaries. We can see why you had boundary issues when I didn't know what a boundary was and I wasn't really allowed to have them. And boundaries, yeah, good times. So, but I'm not going to blame anyone or anything for anyone or anything. But I'm just going to tell you what it was like to be raised by nudists and how that was my normal. And it was weird. So here we are. Welcome to a completely far from DV, yet doesn't our childhood kind of prepare us for life and how we relate to others? So welcome to that episode. Let's get into it. Goodness me, I sounded very excited then and it's not really exciting. So what did my parents being nudists or being raised by nudists, what does that actually entail? What does it mean? I went to what people would probably call a nudist colony, but it was like not a caravan park, it was a privately owned block of big block of land with a river through it by these people who were nudists, and you paid them to go stay there. And you go off the road into this other road off the beaten track. And I was going to say what it was called, but I know you can still Google it and I don't want, it wouldn't be hard to figure out who's who and come back to through my parents to me and, if anyone actually listened and cared or anything, I don't know. Let's just not do that. But they had the word sun in the name, like sunshine. We're all about the sunshine. They sometimes call themselves naturists, not nudists, because they're trying to take away the whole sex thing. And so you would go there on weekends or holidays, camping. Everyone is naked. It's not compulsory for teenagers and young girls or anything and kids and stuff to be nude. There are nudist places. When we travelled through New South Wales, we stopped at some nudist places and my parents found out from other people ahead of time which ones not to go to because I was 14 at the time and they had friends who had an experience where their 14-year-old daughter was told, your daughter must be naked or you can't stay here. Now I understand these places having rules to say you can't stay here if you're not all nude because they're worried about people coming in, covering up yet perving on others. That's not fair. But when it's a family and their teenage daughter is more comfortable not being naked, I really feel it's kind of illegal to tell them that their 14-year-old daughter has to get her pussy out and her I don't know if that place still exists. I'm assuming because they're private lands. It's private place. And obviously it comes from the theory of not wanting pervy people to come in and just be looking but not doing it themselves. But when it's a child, an underage child, there should be rules to say, it's okay. If the parents are nudists and they're coming with the family and the kids don't want to undress, well, that's understandable. So, yeah, when we travelled, we stopped at nudist places. And what is a nudist place? So, yeah, everyone's naked. They had, one down New South Wales had a spa, I think, maybe a pool. The one in Queensland, the one that they frequented regularly, had, it's like tennis, but you put your hand inside this wooden bat thing. There's a name for it. I don't know I can't remember what it is. And then they had frisbee golf, and you have competitions of frisbee golf. And I won one year and apparently got my name engraved on a plaque somewhere that I never ever saw. And I got my like photo taken and put in like a nudist magazine. I was fully clothed, like, yeah. And they would have like an annual like celebration called a luau where they would all party and have a feast, and they'd get in like bands to come in and play like music, and the bands we assume would be told, but they'd be like, whoa, what are we coming into? Like people would say when they're driving in, they're just like their jaws are dropped, like everyone is naked. So you could camp in a tent or a caravan. There were permanent caravans there where people would leave their caravan there and then come up like whenever they could on weekends or whatever and just pay like certain fees for that. And then you could just pitch a tent and everyone was naked, but children and teenagers like didn't have to be. You know, as a little kid, I was obviously got made to be naked because I was a little kid. I remember when I was 14, I was like, okay, I'm going to try and be like a nudist too. And I'm going to try and like just take my top off. I wasn't going to get my mutt out. Do they call it that in other countries? Or is that just an Australian thing, like get your mutt out? A mutt is a vag or a vag snatch, punani, mutt. Anyway, pussy. I wasn't going to do that. I was 14, but I thought, no, I'm going to take my top off, see how it feels like, see if I can be like my parents. And a man, a much older, creepy man, was just staring at my tits, and like we were walking around, and mum just talks to like everyone, hashtag no boundaries, hashtag no boundary life, and she'll just talk to everyone. And so we'd walk around and like men are like, oh, 14, and just staring, and then I would just put my top on and I never tried again. Other than that, like as a little kid, yeah, we were naked like all the time, because you're a little kid, you're not in charge of your body kind of thing, like you don't really know what's going on. So there was also the Nude Olympics. Every year, it's on the news every year at Noosa. Noosa is like, it's near Noosa anyway. Alexandra Beach in Noosa, the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Once a year is the Nude Olympics. Now I was going there in the 80s, and so what would happen was it's like you have running races, you have sprint races, you have like the cross country, like marathon race, and you have this one where you have a bucket that has holes in it, you know, like a plant comes in with all the holes in the bottom, and you got to go into the ocean, fill it up, run to a bucket and try and fill your bucket, and whoever's bucket has the most wins. Now all races were split men and women, and I grew up seeing naked men doing sprinting races. Now I just want you to visualize that. Just imagine what I grew up seeing. When men sprint naked, things fly around. I saw a lot of dicks, and a lot of dicks flapping around, balls flapping around, a lot of stuff happening. Anyway, and they would have kids races and all that. So I would go in all the kids ones and I'd win ribbons. I'd be so excited because at school you might win a ribbon now and then, but at the Nude Olympics, there's not that many people there. So you can win a ribbon, and then you go up to this prize stand and you can take a prize, like a sticker book, a pencil or a rubber, like little kind of prizes. And I'd be like so proud and take my ribbon home, and then Dad would go into my room and steal them and hide them or throw them out. And I was told, remember not to tell anyone about what you did on the weekend. Remember not to tell anyone. And I couldn't have the ribbons because a friend could come over and find them because it was a secret. At the Nude Olympics, they also had best bum competition. And I don't know if they did it for men or just women. I would like to think they did it for men and women. They would hold up this massive sort of like barrier, like plastic tarpy thing, and all the contestants would line up, and so you couldn't see their body or their face. You could just see their bums. And they would judge women on whose bum was the best. And I think they might have done it for the men as well. So, yeah, good old patriarchy at work there. And one year I won the won that a bit, but the marathon. I won the marathon because in the marathon you had to run ages down the beach and around this big circuit and back. And I didn't think I was in for a shoe-in, and I think I won. I was so proud. Had that ribbon taken off me too. I think I was 17 at that stage. I remember being 17 and a boy my age was there. And it's really cool if you find kids or teenagers your age because, you know, it's mostly adults. They try and say it's like a family thing and push the whole family idea, you know, the campgrounds and everything, like families, and because they're trying to like make it look not like a swingers sex thing. So they say, oh, families and families. So when you do meet someone your age, it's like, oh, cool, there's someone else, you know, going through this. Anyway, so I was 17 and he was 17 and he just was naked. And he just walks up to me, starts talking to me, and I'm just like, this is so weird because, well, I went to an all-girls Catholic school, so I don't see boys much. And then there's this boy in front of me, not being that insecure teenager like we all are. Like as soon as we all hit like 13, 14, we were like, clothes back on. Yep, we're not little kids anymore. Like it's not happening. This guy was just like, I am naked. I got no shame. And he just comes and talks to me. And I just was like, I can't talk to you, you're naked. Like I just couldn't, I didn't say that, but I was like, I can't talk to I can't talk to a boy as it is. I go to an all-girls school and I idolize men, another kind of thing that was really not healthy, and was like, wow, a male. But he's standing there with all the things happening, and that was tricky. Another memory, which actually felt positive when I was really little. So when we were little, swimmers, as you might call them, but in Australia we call them togs. In the 80s, if you went swimming at a surf beach, your swimmers would fill with sand. They design them better these days, but for some reason, especially women's, maybe it was just women's, I don't know if men's DTs, we call them DTs, or budgie smugglers, dick togs. You know, little men's swimmers, like the ones, Speedos, I think you call them, because that's a brand. That they wear like in the Olympics and that. Well, we call them DTs, dick togs, because you can see your dick. Anyway, I don't think they filled with sand. I don't know if they did. But women's were so poorly designed in the 80s that if you went swimming at a surf beach, you come out and you've got like a ball sack. Like you have this weight of sand in between your legs. Like the little extra bit of material that goes in the vag bit would just chock-a-block fill with sand, and you're walking out going, ooh. And so you're standing there opening out your veggie bit of your swimmers and trying to like flick out all this built up sand in this little sack. I don't know why we didn't just cut that extra little bit off. Like, why did we try and empty it out all the time? Would it not have made just sense just to cut that liner off and just have one layer there and it can't build up with sand? I don't know. I was only a kid. But the beauty of this whole nude Olympics thing when I was a kid was that you'd go swimming with no togs on because, you know, everyone's naked. And as a little kid, you go in the surf. And I'm telling you that when you go in the surf with no clothes on and you're used to swimmers, and especially swimmers that fill with sand, it felt so cool. Like you got the waves and everything, and you're just like, oh, this feels so good to not have tight, uncomfortable togs with sand ball sack thing, like just being free in the ocean. I actually look forward to that as a kid. Another thing that happened was the secrets. I had to keep it all a secret. They had not told, his parents, my father's parents were deceased. Oh, they weren't deceased. The dad still existed until I was like 11. He was alive until I was like 11. But, so he was around, but I don't know if he knew. I don't think so. And her parents, they had never told her parents. And I'd always say things like, well, when they die, they're going to find out. Wouldn't it be nicer to tell them the truth while they're alive? And she's like, no, I can't. Because someone who's a bit controlling, if you're picking up what I'm putting down when I'm trying not to say anything negative, if you know what I mean. Told her not to tell them. Like, hello, red flag, red flag. He didn't want them to know because they would go to him and say, you're actually selling her this idea of this nature stuff. Because he knew, like, when I'm told to keep something a secret, there's a reason. And they're like, no, we're not ashamed about it. Because I'd be like, well, why is it a secret if it's not bad? Because they'll be like, it's not bad. It's not sexual. It's good in its nature. But other people don't understand. We just can't tell anyone because they won't understand what it is. They think it's bad, but it's not. But this whole effort and energy into keeping it a secret. For the Nude Olympics, they would park in these back streets way away from the beach. And we would have to walk through this mountain, like it was like a mountain or something, like this massive hill thing. It was like a mountain, you know, when there's like a beach and then like it's like up like a mountain. Anyway, and we would have to bushwalk through this huge, I swear it was like 2 kilometers. I don't know. I was a kid. But this long bushwalk, and we would just pop out and there we would be at the beach and there's the carnival. I feel like I was lied to because I think years and years later I might have driven past there or something and seen there was a car park. There was like a place to park that was right at the beach. And I believe they wanted their car to be further away so they could lie. If someone found out and saw their car there, they could lie and say, oh no, we were visiting someone in one of those houses, like, because it was kilometers away. But to make your kids do this long bushwalk through like this mountainy thing before they hit the beach, then spend the entire day at the beach in the sun. You know, I have like really bad freckles and skin cancer. Everyone in my family has skin cancer. We have very fair skin, and I was always burning and peeling in the 80s and 90s until I was old enough to say, no, I'm not going in the sun. And if I do, obviously, wear sun protection. But I don't know, just to add that on, and at the end of the day, you're tired, and we had to climb that. I don't know if it's a mountain, but we had to climb that big hill and go through that bushwalk again to get back to the car. So the secret thing, I didn't understand, and literally until like in recent years understood how toxic that was. Just say, keep this a secret, and take my ribbons off me, not even let me, trust me to keep them in like a box somewhere, like banned, like taken off me, so that I can't ever go, oh, I won that race. Like, and I was only allowed to keep the prizes if it looked like just a book, like an empty, like exercise book for school or something. If it had any kind of marking on it or anything that insinuated where it was from, I'd have it taken off me. So the whole keep it a secret thing really, really sucked. And I do know that Mum told her 2 of her siblings, I think, before her parents died, and said, oh, you should come, like, because she's so like gaslit by Dad that she just thinks it's so nice and natural and everything's great, and would invite them, and they were like, no, that's not right. And so she had that whole gaslighting to think, oh, there's something wrong with them. Like, she had been taught by him to think there's something wrong with people who would judge that and think it's not healthy. So the secret part really sucked, and I really wanted people to know, and I could not understand as a child or growing up at all why if it's not a shame thing, if it's not a bad thing, why can't you tell people? Because it is a shame thing and it is a bad thing. But I grew up even into my 30s thinking it had been a positive and defending it. I think a lot of people like who grew up in cults or in situations where they're really conditioned to think a certain way, it takes a long time and a lot of other things to sort of undo that. And I defended it in some ways. So one thing that was a positive was when I went on my first prac for uni. So I did nursing at uni, and prac is, when you go to the hospitals or whatever. The first one was a nursing home, and you had to be assessed on showering a patient. And I remember how my friend from uni, she was like, oh my goodness, I've never seen an old person naked before. This is so freaky. I was freaking out. And for me, I was like, I have grown up seeing naked people, seeing all ages, all shapes, all sizes. And one good thing I got from that was everyone looked the same. Like when you see everyone around you, like hundreds of people, all different ages, shapes and sizes, you realize at the end of the day, we all look the same. All the men had dicks and all the women had tits and butts and stuff. Different shapes and sizes of tits and butts, but everyone just kind of looked like normal. And I grew up just thinking, nudity, what of it? But in some ways, I wished everyone could have had that experience to see hundreds of people, all different shapes, sizes and ages around them naked, in that they would realize we all look the same. Like when you've got young men going, oh, I don't like women who have this like small boobs or something. Or I don't like women who are like this size and that. And you just realize how petty and ridiculous it is, and how petty and ridiculous like the beauty industry is, when you see everyone just looks the same. And even men and their dicks. Like I saw so many dicks of all different shapes and sizes and everything. And at the end of the day, they were just dicks. And people were people. I think what's more important is people. And so it took away nudity for me. Like, when you first see someone naked, it's not like, oh, wow. Because I grew up seeing a lot of dicks in my face, especially being a little girl, you're at eye level. There was one man with a dick, and I keep saying the word dick. I really have to stop saying the word dick. There was one man when I was 14, I remember, and mum and dad with their friends around the campfire or whatever would laugh at him and bully him and called him the white pointer. And he was a man that went there alone, and he would walk around and he would always have a semi. Obviously, I was 14, all girls school. I didn't know what a semi was, but he walked around with like an erection, like not full. Now I know, like then I didn't. Like, but it was sticking like right out. And they would just walk around, like talk about this, go, oh, the white pointer. And there was another man that had like this really teeny tiny doodle, and they would like laugh about him as well in their little group, like with other couples. And I remember one lady saying, oh, and he, like I was sitting on my camp chair and he came up to talk to me and it was right at eye level, and and laughing and stuff, because this man had a very, very small penis, like a little button. But, grower, shower, he's probably a grower, like whatever. I know that now. I did not know that. So I'm hearing all this as a kid, and lovely. Also, your parents having sex in the caravan when you're there and you're awake is like really disrespectful and really traumatizing, and really was really traumatizing and embarrassing and horrific and horrible. And I really hated that too. But that's another. And then the next day when they joked about it with their friends in front of me, like, if their fans are rocking, don't come a knocking, like, hello, I'm here. Like, why am I here? Why could I not stay with someone else? Like, why am I here? I'm a child. I don't want to see all this stuff. Thank you very much. Great. Love it. But I kept thinking it was good because I was, gaslit, conditioned, whatever, to think it was good. And there was like a river and you go swimming in the campground. So I thought that was great, going to this campground and go for a swim in the river. And I thought that was really exciting. And then playing that tennis game and the frisbee game, and just like being in a campground, and that was good. And then when they had that party, it was cool. And there was like 2 other teenagers. Some years you'd talk to them and then they wouldn't keep coming back. There was a girl my age, but because the internet didn't exist, we didn't get to like bond because she went to another school, and we would have been really good friends, but there was no internet. So it's not like I'm going to call her on the home phone because she lived quite a distance away. So if we had the internet, we would have chatted online. We could have like actually debriefed about our experiences together and supported each other with that. I don't even remember what her name was, so that's kind of weird. Anyway, when it got to time when we grew up and had our own families, Mum and Dad were like, are you guys going to come to the nudist camp? Like, or not a nudist camp. Are you guys going to come to the colony or whatever they called it? I'm not going to say the name of the place. I could. And they were like, are you going to come? And we were like, no. And they were like, why? Why aren't you going to raise your kids there? Like, why aren't you carrying the flame, carrying the torch? Why aren't you guys nudists? And because my sibling is older than me, they don't really have much to do with the family. It's very sad. That's a huge trauma thing. That's very sad. They just were like, yeah, no. And then I was like, no, I can't. And they'd be like I get a boyfriend. And every boyfriend I got, because I'd have long-term relationships as a young adult, they'd say, invite him up to the nudist colony. And they'd say, just come for the day if you don't want to stay. And I'd be like, I don't think my boyfriend would feel comfortable sitting around in camp chairs with my mother's mud. Like, I don't think. And then when I was like married and stuff, they're like, come bring them up. And I'm like, no man who's with me wants to see his mother-in-law naked in front of him. And they're like, we could put clothes on while he's there if it makes you feel better. And I'm like, it just, and they would always be like, no, why do I want to see your mum's vagina and titty, and your dad's penis? Like, I don't want to be around your parents naked. Cool, they do that. Awesome. Not judging, but it just, us going just seemed wrong. And I think they were sad that we weren't carrying the tradition and raising our kids as nudists. And they're like, what's wrong with it? What's your problem? You know it's not seedy and stuff. You know it's not sexual. And they kept saying it's not swingers. I was so convinced by that once I actually wrote an article for a naturist magazine saying, hi, I'm an adult now. It was so good, for my body confidence, because I could get naked anytime as a young adult and not feel insecure about my body, because at the end of the day, I knew all bodies were the same. So I didn't really feel insecure. So it was so good for my self-image when it came to my naked body and then seeing other naked bodies. So I wrote an article and they published it. I don't even recall if I was allowed to see it. I was told it was published. Maybe I was allowed to glance at it once, but I was not allowed to have a copy of that magazine. I was an adult. I'm sure I probably could have found a copy myself, but I wasn't told which issue it ended up being in and where to find it and when it was released. And I wasn't going to go around buying that magazine for months to try and find it. So I trusted them that they had it and they'd let me have it, but I wasn't allowed to have it because their nudist magazines were locked away. So no one could find out. More secret stuff. So I had to have that secret growing up. And I think that's probably why lies have always triggered me. Mum would try and say, oh, that's a white lie. You can lie about that, and encourage lies in some way. And I'd be like, no, all lies are bad. I guess it's probably autism and your ADHD and all that, just being black and white thinking. But I just have always hated lies because I'm very naive and vulnerable, and I get very confused by, well, why would you? And people go, I was lying. And it's well, and you believed it. And I'm like, yeah, don't lie to me then. Yeah, I think it's that kind of neurodivergent way of thinking where I'm like, why would you lie? Lie's bad. Lies cause pain. Lies are not good. And so I was just, even as a little kid, I remember trying to tell her, what do you mean white lie? A lie's a lie. And she's like, no, there's white lies. And she couldn't explain it. And now I know why, because it doesn't exist. Lies are lies. And it makes sense when, for survival or for some dramatic, huge reason, you might have to lie. But yeah, and maybe what contributed to that was this whole having to keep a secret thing. And I had to, if I had told a teacher or anyone at school what was happening or where I was going or anything like that, I would have been in heaps of trouble. And they still, to this day, try and normalize it and say it's great and it's nature and stuff like that. Now, they think that people think it's a sex swinging thing. And it's not, but it's definitely like a pervy, misogyny, patriarchal bullshit thing where men like generally like to get their kid out, their junk out. They like to be nude. They love it. Sit around, be nude, have beers, chill, camping. They love that. And what else do they like? What do they like looking at? Women naked, boobies. So these men convince their wives that, we're just naturists, we're just free, we're one with nature. It's like the way we're meant to be. They even had like a club called Adam and Eve because they were trying to say, look, we're like the way God intended and everything. I believe now that I know, like I've cracked my brain out of all the conditioning that society does to us. I now believe that the men convinced their wives of all that bullshit just so they could go to a campground, get naked, which they love, have a beer, and check out all the naked chicks walking around and all the tits. What man wouldn't like that? Well, what misogynistic kind of yucky, pervy man wouldn't like that? And then they have this whole family, it's a family environment facade just to cover the fact that they're perverts. Like, you can be nude in your house. You can be nude wherever you want. Why do you have to be nude near someone else's wife and husband? Like, why do you need to be nude in a public thing together? Like, we all love being nude. Like, a lot of the time. I don't know if you do. But like you have a shower and you're just like, I'm still a bit damp. Do I have to get dressed? Sometimes you just lie in your bed. Depends on who you live with, what your situation is. But it's not a bad thing. Just this desire and this drive to do it near people. And they would go to people's houses and go in their jacuzzis and they'd all be nude. And it's like they just had to be nude. And it's like this desire and need to be naked and around other naked people all the time, and it doesn't really make sense. And Dad was very aggressive and controlling, and he yelled every single day of my childhood. He would yell at Mum, and I'm pretty effed up from it. And so, I mean, why have you ended up with these horrible men? I don't know why you have. I mean, he was such a good father, and the gaslighting continues to this day, and that's why I actually have not talked about my childhood and its contribution to ending up like in domestic violence relationships, because there is so much guilt, because I'm still gaslit to this day to be quiet, don't talk about it. It's you're sensitive, you're the issue. That never happened. He was great. He was just a bit stressed. There were always excuses. His needs came before the children's needs. So if you're a mother and a wife, do you put your husband's needs before your kids? If your kids are coming up to you saying, I'm really scared of daddy, do you gaslight them and tell them it's in their head and put them down and tell them they're stupid and to keep secrets and stuff? Or do you like pander to everything he wants because he has to feel good? So she'd go, we have to do that so he can feel good. We have to do that because he will feel good. So he was always stressed. The word stressed was used all the time to justify the abuse at home. And I feel bad saying the word abuse because we can't do that. We can't say that word because, and I've talked to so many like DV counsellors and stuff about this, about just being gaslit and told like all that stuff, and they've confirmed like, yes, that was abuse. It was a very toxic situation, and it still is. And then the guilt of not being able to ever get through to them and say, look, I'm not blaming you. Everyone does the best they can do based on the way they were raised. However, acknowledging that it happened would make such a difference psychologically for me and everyone moving on. But no, it's that it never happened. It's all in your head. You're just sensitive. You've got an issue. He was just a bit stressed. What are you talking about, kind of thing. And so anytime I've gone to say the word abuse about it and say I was raised in DV, I get this pang of guilt in my belly to say, don't say that. They don't want you to say that. You're the problem. And it's just so ingrained and so conditioned in there. So no wonder it took me like so long to sort of have clearer thoughts about the nudist thing. And it wasn't until I was a parent and also when my kids were sexually abused, it wasn't until all of that it was like, yeah, no, that was wrong. I can only imagine how many pedophiles frequented and to this day frequent that and many other similar places because it is a family environment. You can tell the face I just had them, like this sarcastic, sussy, like family, you know, being very sarcastic. And you just know if you're a pedo, you just sit there or you're there with your wife, you know, pretending that you're not a pedo or whatever. And you're just looking at all the nude little kids, having a great time or taking pictures of them. Oh, photos everywhere. The only thing we weren't allowed to do was when the news camera was there, we had to hide. Because they didn't want anyone to recognise us because of the secret. So all the kids and everyone would run behind the reporter and get filmed and be like waving, and they'd be like, no, come over here. While the cameras are here, you have to hide because we have to keep this a secret. I believe it is like very unhealthy in that regard that if your kids are naked in front of grown men, like I think their theory was if the man isn't physically shoving his bits into you, like if he's masturbating over you, as long as you're not aware of it, like it doesn't affect you. Like, so they were like, men were allowed to perv on us when we were little kids, and men did. Like I always saw men staring at us when we were naked as little kids, and it was just meant to be this like normal thing. I think it took a while for me to wrap my head around families that weren't naked all the time in front of each other, because I was raised that anyone who wasn't was called a prude. And so it was a negative word given to anyone who didn't approve of that lifestyle or partake in that lifestyle. So I think I came to them once in my 20s and said, oh, so-and-so, a grown male, his mother's not, he hasn't seen his mother naked ever in his whole life that he can remember. She goes, oh, well, they're prudes. Prudes are like that. So I was raised that if people aren't doing that nudism thing, that they're prude and there's something wrong with them. And so being good is to be naked but keep it a secret from the prudes, because the prudes are stupid and they don't know. They don't understand. So, I mean, I don't know if there's a darker thing happening. We would go to bed early on the party nights and stuff. I don't know. I don't think there was, but I know what it was, surface level, is inappropriate. Now that we know the percentages, like how many men are predators of children, women and children, how many are like that I just could not ever put my naked children in front of grown men. Like, how do you sit there and look at men looking at your daughter's vagina and think, oh yeah, she's cute, isn't she? Children aside, like your wife, like men are looking at your wife's, not only her boobs, they're also looking at her bits. And you know how she shaves or doesn't shave or whatever's going on down there. So you're sitting around and men are like looking at your daughter and son, your little kids and your wife, and you just see them doing that. And you're like, okay with it. They're probably okay with it because they're doing the same thing, if you know what I mean, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. So anyway, yeah, I was okay with it younger, and then I'm not okay with it now, but I can't ever talk about that to them because the defense, the conditioning and gaslighting and the whole, if you say anything against it, you're the problem, you're a prude. I don't know how you guys grew up to be prudes when we thought we raised you differently, and if you bring up any of the DV or anything like that, it's instant gaslighting, instant defense. And it's sad that there can't be like a conversation where you just go, oh, I don't think that was okay. And for them to go, oh, well, interesting. And like you just share what you feel. everything is defense. Like you can't even say one word and it's instant defense because she's being conditioned and sort of gaslit by him to like defend him and all his choices and everything, and everyone else is wrong. And to be that blindly committed to your husband, I've at times thought, is that why I'm not married? Because I wouldn't put up with abuse. But in the last relationship, he wanted me dead. Like there was no choice but to leave. And the one victim before me said the same thing. She was like, if I stayed any longer, I would be dead. And so he wanted death. Like he wanted to kill us. So that wasn't an option. But in other relationships, should I have put up with more? Should I have been more tolerant and more always put the male needs first, even if they impacted myself or my children or anything like that negatively? So, because people celebrate, you know, wedding anniversaries of 50 years plus, and when it's only that because they've just let this person, just enabled this person to do whatever they want, I just think, well, I'm the problem because I didn't tolerate abuse. Therefore, I'm alone. But I know there's marriages where people aren't being abused. But the message has always been sent to me that like, well, you were just not putting up with enough. I don't know. I'm just speaking random thoughts now. So that's it. That's my nudist story. No one out there will be one, but if anyone is one, like just think about your kids and who's looking at your kids and why you're doing it. The women do it because the men convince them, oh, it's nature, it's lovely. And well, you can think like that. It's like men love being nude and love seeing naked women and children. It's kind of sick, the second part of that. There was a lot of encouragement to be naked as a child. I think there's this whole idea in their heads that a naked family is like so natural and so cool. I mean, these people grew up in the 60s. So, the boomers. So, yeah, I have a lot of memories from there. Like there was this circle of grass that never grew, like circle in the grass where grass never grew. And we were told it was an old Aboriginal, like Kawabari, sorry if I said that wrong, spiritual thing. And so the grass just never ever grew in this one circle on the grass. And then people would tell ghost stories saying they saw Aboriginal ghosts and stuff. I don't know, but yeah, there was a grass, like it was all grass in this area and there was just one circle where it just never grew, and they said it was some spiritual Aboriginal thing. There was skeletons of cows that were trapped under trees in the river. Ew. I was swimming one day, having a great swim. The next day the tide went down and you could see a drowned cat that had been under the water that whole time, but it had only been revealed when the tide went down. And I was like, I am literally swimming with cow skeletons and dead drowned cats. And ever since then, I just would not get in the water. I was like, all I can think of is like all these drowned animals, carcasses and corpses around me. Like it was just, yeah. Like maybe as adults, being nudist would be all right, I guess. I still like, even in a couple, I'd be like, who's looking at my mans? And the man would be like, who's looking at my ladies? Like, what do you look like? Other people looking, like, do you need people to see your genitals? Because like doing things naked, like they had a naked skydive, I think, well, that's like a novelty thing, like a one-off kind of weird, cool thing. I'm not saying I'd do it because the wind, no, ow. But like doing things nude that are like you can't normally, like maybe as adults, but still, like, do you need people to look at your bits or do you need to see other people's bits? Like, what is it? Do you need to view naked people or do you need to be viewed? I've tried asking these questions. It's just like, no, we're just nature. Like, we're just so relaxed. Like, yeah, and that's what I was talking about before. Yeah, sorry. about the stress. Like I got onto about the aggression and the stress. So I was told that like he feels really relaxed there and it helps him because he gets so stressed. You know he gets stressed. And so when we go to the nudist place, it just really helps him with his stress because a man has to get nude and see other naked people like, and then he can feel good. It's like therapy. Therapy. This man was on medication from 1997. Never, ever refused his whole life to see any counsellor or therapist, any psychologist, anything, yet has been on antidepressants like the whole time. And it's like therapy. No, naked women and children and other dicks and men. Therapy. Men get therapy. Then make your decisions. And maybe ask your wife and children how they feel. Oh, I can't even imagine a parent, like my parent, like asking me, hey, we're going to do this. What do you think? I can't even imagine my opinion ever being asked or valid. Like we weren't allowed to have boundaries. We weren't allowed to have opinions. You weren't allowed to ever shut your door. You had to get changed in full view of everyone. There was no lock on the bathroom. Like you had to, anyone could walk in and out while you're in the shower, and that or naked always happened. There was just no boundaries. You weren't allowed to have any boundaries. Like it was completely open and everything. Yet secrets that served a person in particular in the house, secrets were okay. Not us having, like we couldn't have secrets. Hell no. Oh, no. And mum wouldn't keep any feminine or anything secrets from my father. Like she would tell him everything I said and did. I trusted her. And I had this whole thing where I thought I could tell her like female things or something. Every single thing I said to her, she ran straight to him and reported it. It was kind of like a mini cult. Like, have to go to the leader. Everything I say, like even now, I'll be talking and I'll just be like, oh, what about this app? Or what about this thing? Or just like a random subject. And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go do that. And she's like, I have to tell him first. And I'm like, why? Do you need permission? I love dropping that. She's like, no, he was already talking about this subject before. It's a lie. He wasn't. She will make any excuse because she knows any information has to be reported to him. Anything that's done has to go through his approval system to this day. And they're in their like 70s. And what do you do? So actually there might be people out there, sorry, subjects just like bouncing around the place right now. I was like, the episode's over. I always do that. I'm like, oh, so here we are concluding at the end. And then I'm like, tangent. Actually just had a thought that would be very helpful for some people. If there are people out there and you had some kind of childhood stuff, I can't use the words because you get like in trouble. Am I right? Or am I right? And you're not allowed to like bring it up or anything and you feel shame about it because you're like, did it really happen? Is it really that bad? Just know that that is like a common thing, that there are a lot of parents out there not willing to take responsibility or even have an open discussion about things that did happen and acknowledge things. I think a lot of us acknowledge things. We go, oh, yeah, that was really bad. Like with my own children, they've had traumas. And those traumas have not been my fault. They've been the fault of other people. But I still have literally cried and said to them, I am so sorry that happened. And it's my job as a mum to protect you. And I know I didn't know. And I know it was the other person who did that. And I know there's no way I could know. But it's my job to protect you. And I'm sorry. And I've said things like, I'm sorry, I'm like a bad mum because I've been, hurt and broken. And, I'm sorry for so many things because it's so important to acknowledge things. And I've said things like, I think you're just going to hate me one day, like because you've had the worst childhood and I tried everything in my power to give you the best one. And the harder I tried, the more blew up. And all the individual things that happened were not my fault, but I couldn't prevent them from happening, and decisions I made that seemed positive at the time ended up leading to these people doing bad things. Like, acknowledging is so good for people's mental health, but there is a whole generation out there with probably like boomer parents where things are swept under the rug, things are not talked about, and it's okay. It's okay that no one's talking about it. It's okay that, you know, if there is something that happened and they're saying, no, it didn't, that's all in your head. It did happen and it wasn't cool, and I'm sorry that you're not getting the apology or even the conversation that you need to heal and move on. And I'm sorry that that generation didn't have therapy and that they couldn't, you know, get to a place where they could talk about things. And the DV counsellors even said, like, there's no way your mother could ever verbalise what was really happening because she'd have to admit it to herself. And that's just way too much to admit and take on. And everyone does stuff for self-protection and stuff. So it's hard. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking because I keep talking. And I'm sorry I'm in your ears. Goodbye. I forgot how I end it. You know, I don't have that really annoying sound anymore. So I kind of just say goodbye. And I was just like, what do I say at the end? And I just went, goodbye. It's like when you ring the government and they like have this like pre-recorded thing and they hang up on you and they go, we're not going to help you today. Goodbye. And then it goes beep, beep. And they just hung up on you. And you're like, I'm ringing. Could you put me on hold? No? Okay. So goodbye. Take care, stay safe, and put your clothes on, you dirty bitches. No, it's okay to be naked. Be naked, but be naked with adults, and don't make children be naked or around naked men and stuff like that. Tangent. They actually said they tried to stop people coming in that they thought might be pervy. So they said when a single male rocked up, they would be like suspicious and like kind of watching him like in the campground to make, sorry, I do say like a lot. It's just, I think it's come from, and I heard someone got told off big time today on TikTok when I was watching TikTok because they said the word like a lot. It's what we do when we're replacing because we were taught in school, like, there's another one, don't say We were taught, you know, when we worked in radio, don't say So we tend to replace that word with something more conversational and less annoying, yet I am mindful that I say it a lot. And I'm sorry. I can't edit on this program. So there's zero editing happening. This is all freestyling. Fuck the microphone. And you're like, yeah, I'm not surprised. It's fucking shit. Should I call this a double episode? Rambling episode. As you can see, I went from 2 episodes a week to 1 big fat episode every week again. Look, I don't know what I'm doing. I just do it and it's out there. And that's what we're doing. I don't want to drop 2 1-hour episodes a week. Ain't nobody got time for that. Like literally nobody got time for that. I ain't listening to that much podcasting. Frick that off. Although the podcasts I listen to, people get paid to do them and they have like so many ads in them and you try and like learn how to skip the ads. This better not have any ads in it. Like this better not have any because ain't nobody on my, like I'm no ads girl. Ad free because it kind of sucks and you get what you pay for. Look, I keep talking because I know there's a point that I've forgotten and that I know will come to me as soon as like within the next 24 hours and I'll be like, oh, I wish I'd added that. It's such an important thing. So I keep talking in the hope that I'll remember it. Kind of like, have you ever gone to the grocery store and you've got a few things and you're like, there's something else I've got to get, and you keep buying other things because you're trying to make up for the thing you can't remember. You're like, maybe I do need laundry liquid. Maybe we are low on this and that, because there's something you're forgetting. And it's not till you get home or like a day later you think, oh, yep, that was it. That was it. And buying all this other stuff, not helpful. Tangent. Okay, I'm going. No, I really am this time. You hang up. No, you hang up. Okay, you just hung up. Fine. Stay safe, legends. Love you. Bye. No, like literally, I do. If you've made it this far, dude, you are my favorite. You are my favorite. Love you. Bye.